Anecdotes and advice for supply chain planning in 2020. My guest is David Barton. He is General Manager North America with ToolsGroup. Hi, David. Welcome.
Hi, Robert. Very good to be with you and the Supply Chain Brain program.
So let's talk about how supply chain practitioners are dealing with disruption today. I mean, how different is their response across various industry verticals?
Yeah, it's widely different challenges that companies face across verticals. You can imagine a consumer staples company and particularly the consumer direct companies, the incredible spikes that they've seen compared to durable goods, right? Where companies have really had to stop and consider their capital investments. So, big spikes in demand with really unprecedented peaks and valleys. Some companies experiencing both, depending on what market their product line is in. And the result is sales impacted both very negatively and in some cases very positively. We have a customer in the industrial and consumer cleaners market. Their industrials business was drastically impacted, where their consumer market spiked to the point where they couldn't meet demand and had to really refocus their inventory model and supply allocation. So very different impacts. The result is companies reevaluating stock levels, right? And the decisions they're making around stock levels, given what they are seeing in their supply chain behavior, so that they can really get towards getting the most out of the inventory that they have, right? Sometimes, their backlog that's in flight, they've got to make in-flight decisions about how they're going to utilize that inventory to get it to where it's going to have the greatest impact against a constrained inventory. So these optimization decisions are really important. And we see customers who have built a digital model of their supply chain in a better position to react because they know the outcomes they're going to see if they adjust certain parameters, right? They've already lived in that model for some period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And albeit that we're looking at unprecedented new data that still requires some intelligent human overlay to react to demand on a much, much shorter schedule, having that core digital model and being able to simulate the outcomes that you're looking for based upon the new constraints and reality you face is really allowing the companies that have invested to have an advantage over their peers in responding to this market challenge and the disruption this
So
year.
while their situations may be wildly different, some are dealing with spikes in demand, some are dealing with plunges in demand, who knows, depending on the vertical. I think what you're saying is that the response they all have in common is this need to really drill down into their inventory situation and deal with that in a more efficient way.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, many of our customers have long lead times, and with the disruption in the supply chain, they really have to make decisions or allocation to get the most service level impact out of the constrained supply that they have. Again, the experience across industry is very different. We have a company, Franke, in Europe. They make durables and consumer kitchen equipment, and their supply chain has been substantially disrupted. They're relying on commercial overrides, intelligent commercial overrides, so that they don't lose the impact value of the embedded machine learning, the intelligence in their model. They're looking at filtering exceptional demand and actually overlaying dummy demand in future periods so that they don't get a false signal of lack of demand from the current period that we've been through right now.
Dummy demand, that's an interesting idea. It's sort of a what-if scenario. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, so taking extracts from prior, let's say, normal periods in time, and being able to overlay that against a future period so that you don't get a false signal from the incredible fluctuation that we've seen because of the pandemic. Yeah. But at the end of the day, to have that really daily, weekly, and daily focus has become really critical to get an accurate demand signal with the spike in demand that's coming in the recovery from many of the customers that we see.
But to coordinate that with visibility upstream to all of your inventory, wherever it might be, and I imagine that a number of companies that did not pursue the avenue of digitization prior to this are suffering from their lack of ability to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We work with McDonald's Mesoamerica, and for them to have effectively real-time visibility of inventory and location so that they can respond to short-term demand changes regionally has been essential to them. Again, to get the most out of the available supply chain that they have. I mentioned this company in the industrial and consumer cleaner space. They've really had to rely on daily demand variation reports to tune their supply chain responses and what they were going to do with available order, and really focus on a short-term scheduling
Hmm.
to deal with the disruptions they've had with lead time and availability of supply.
Yeah. What about those companies that are very consumer focused, the ones that really have to pay attention to the upcoming peak season for the holiday shopping season and have to somehow figure out what demand's going to be, position inventory accordingly, have that visibility downstream, upstream? I imagine that's a huge challenge for them.
Yeah, and to having the intelligence, the machine learning, to be able to have uh, time series examples from prior normal periods, and
Hmm.
then to also look very closely at regional market recovery, and to be able to study regions that are ahead of the pack in terms of recovery and see what the consumer behavior is in that region, and then to apply that scenario to other regions as they emerge in an intelligent way, and look at those scenarios in terms of the demand spike that you'll see, and then how you're going to manage a limited supply chain across the regional allocation decisions that you have to make.
So, what would be your top advice for supply chain companies for the rest of 2020 and going into 2021?
These are tough times, but industry leaders make capital investment in tough times, and that's why they maintain their leaders position in the market. And as I mentioned, having that automation capability in place and to really extend it to set a foundation for 2021 and to really get ahead on your planning process so that you're more nimble than your peers in the market, right? That's a leader's advantage in terms of making the capital investment. In terms of specific wins, look for quick wins in the near term, right? Improving efficiency and reducing how wasteful use of stock will allow you to free up working capital to make that kind of investment in your business, right? To make the capital investment that can place you ahead of your peers.
Hmm.
Uh, Communication needs to be open. You have to strike the right balance between getting usable input from your planners and not overriding your machine-driven forecasting to too great an extent. So judgment has to be applied there, and communication has to be applied there. And ultimately having an automated model where you can look at scenarios. What if we looked at demand this way in this period? How would we respond to it? What are we in a position to do? How would our decisions have different impacts? And then picking the most probable scenario and being best fitted for it is educated guessing, right, in this time of uncertainty, but having the model so you can see the business impact of the decisions you make in that scenario is critical. So the other part of that is all boats rise with the tide. Talk to your peers, talk to your technology providers, right? This is a time of having insight and spontaneity to get creative ideas, right? New ways of thinking about the problem. The example of recovering market. Does that look like an emerging market? Could I use some baseline series of data that I have where I launched a new product in a new region to understand what the recovery might look like in a specific region? But
Hmm.
having that creativity across your team. But again, to make best use of this really requires an automated optimization solution within your supply chain so that you can see and predict with good accuracy the business outcome you're going to get.
Now, you make a strong case for automation, but I think also proper management of talent becomes
Yeah,
essential at this time too, does it not?
no, absolutely, absolutely. Voices need to be heard right now,
Hmm.
and the planner really needs to take an active role. Companies that have an effective planning community and make effective use of the tools and automation that they have are going to set the foundation for flourishing in the recovery through 2021 and really being more sustainable and getting through the additional challenge we face through the end of this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great advice for companies that have already pursued or begun to pursue the path of automation and digitization in much better shape than those that haven't. But some good advice, and let's hope that that the ones that haven't have learned their lesson going forward. At this point, David, I'd like to turn to a little bit of a discussion about Tools Group itself specifically. What do you folks feel you're doing or contributing to companies getting through these very difficult times in the area of supply chain planning?
Yeah, no, thank you, Robert. Hard to believe now, but in February, we introduced new branding, the theme of which was "Be ready for anything." So
Hmm.
incredibly ironic
Good,
that
good message.
within
Coincidentally, yeah.
within weeks, of course, we had the initial wave of the pandemic. But
Hmm.
our mission is to help companies have the right thing in the right place at the right time over the series of regions and SKUs that they work with, and we do that with optimization, right? So that allows them to take the available supply, the performance of their network, upstream and downstream, and effectively guarantee target service levels with the optimization modeling by mapping the probability of demand to the service levels they need to achieve, the service levels that will deliver the greatest top line revenue to their business while minimizing the consumption of inventory. And that's done with machine learning, automated forecasting, automated replenishment, but ultimately being mapped to service level objectives. That's the key, because we live in a constrained time. You have to get the most out of what you have available and what is the actual capability of the network that you operate within your entire upstream and downstream business market.
Well, be ready for anything. It sounds like anything happened, but you guys are on top of it, so that's good to hear. Uh, David Barton, thanks so much for helping us, giving a little bit of anecdotes and advice for in general for supply chain planning in 2020, and also a little bit about how Tools Group is getting through it with its customers as well. Thanks
Yeah,
so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
yeah, great to be here with you, Robert. And it's really a time for supply chain planners to shine and help their companies innovate and thrive in the days ahead.
Good luck
We're
to everyone
pleased to be
going
part of that.
forward. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you. Thank you, Robert.